To our next speaker, she'll be speaking on what I sometimes call the supermodel of comprehensive estate and succession plan. And you'd find out why I said that in a minute. Our next speaker is Ilana Meyer. Ilana has worked as a private client advisor for more than 20 years. She started her career in the asset management industry in South Africa in the mid-90s at the famous Investec Asset Management. Ilana has more than a decade of experience in the Middle East and East Africa. She's an expert in regional and cross-border investments and real estate management. Today, she focuses on private client advice, specifically related to client mobility, residency, and citizenship, and the related real estate investments. Ilana is currently with Henley & Partners, a global leader in residence and citizenship planning, and is also a member of the Investment Migration Council in Switzerland. Now you'd find out why I said this is usually called the supermodel of estate and succession planning, because we're going to be talking about alternative residency and citizenship. Over to you, Ilana.
Thanks, Yemi. Thank you very much for that introduction. As you were introducing Henry, I thought, geez, 25 years experience, the man must be quite old. And then you said Ilana has more than 20 years experience, and I realized that Henry and I started in this industry at the same time. So Henry, not so old. My apologies for thinking that. Of course, we are still both very young and have lots of value to add. I'd like to start my presentation by just giving you an overview of the Henley & Partners business, not so much because of Henley, but because of what it means to you as a client or as an advisor. I had a peek there at the participants, and I see a few of the ARM advisors attending. Some of them I've met and have worked with and have assisted their clients. So welcome, guys. Nice to have you there. Why it's important for us to have a global business, and I think this touches on so many of the points that Ngoba and Henry raised in terms of confidentiality, in terms of clients' data protection, in terms of servicing you as a client. When we send a client, for instance, to Portugal, we don't send you out into the cold. We have a Henley & Partners concierge service on the ground that receives you and looks after your interests there. Of course, at the moment, it's a little bit difficult for us. We're doing everything remotely using various embassies and support structures. But soon the world will open up, and then you'll see the true benefits of being able to travel. In terms of Henley & Partners global business, we also started coincidentally in the mid-90s. So the company is as experienced as we are, Henry. I haven't actually asked Ngoba how long she's been in the industry, but you look a little bit younger than us, so maybe not quite 25 years. So the Henley & Partners business is well established. We started the citizenship and residency by investment industry all those years ago. And our first client was the St. Kitts and Nevis, the island of St. Kitts and Nevis, where we created a structure for them. So a large part of our business coincides with the phrases that Henry and Ngoba used in terms of creating societal value for the countries that offer the program. So we have a government advisory division that has, over the last 2 decades, have created more than $8 billion worth of sovereign investment, sovereign value for different countries. So it's important when we start an investment process. You can move to my next slide, please. When we start an investment process with a client, that our clients also understand there's reasons why all these programs are different. So every country has the right to decide how they want you to invest in their country, what it is that they're looking for. And when you understand that every country and their laws are different, and they create programs according to what it is that they need and what they want from all of us and you as investors, it makes it a little bit easier to understand why they are so different and why the costs are so different. So a very important part of our process, and that's why it's really nice working with a company like ARM and ARM Trustees that offer all of the right services to prepare a client for this journey. Because you have to have an estate plan in place. You have to have an international structure in place. You have to have the ability to move money internationally. You have to understand how to separate your trust from your company, from your personal life, before we can go on this journey of establishing what citizenship or residency might be beneficial for you. So a very large part of the work that we do is in that initial planning, understanding the client's profile, understanding why there might be some people in our audience today, if you're sitting there next to a colleague and you look at your colleague and think, well, why are you here? What your situation is so different from mine. What could you possibly want from this? And each and every one of us have a different need. So sometimes people come to retirement and they want to retire in Nigeria, and they're very happy to do that, but they want to travel. So they need one type of solution. Sometimes people want to relocate or spend half the year in a warmer climate or a colder climate. Henry moved to the UK, so I'm assuming he enjoys the cold weather. So people have different needs, and it's important for us to understand that. So when you're out there in the market and you come across all the real estate agents and companies that are selling passports, it's a horrible term that we absolutely hate. If somebody is trying to sell you a passport, they have not actually asked you the important questions. They have not asked you what you want to do with this. How is this part of your strategy? How is this part of the legacy you're leaving your family? If you just want to buy the cheapest passport out there, I guess there are some people that do that, but it's very important, given the amounts of money that we're talking to, even if you are a very wealthy person, we have to make sure that those assets are allocated correctly and that you end up with a solution that works for you. When we move on to the reasons why people come to Henley and Partners, and once again, I'd ask you, if you think about the people you invited or people sitting next to you, my next slide, please. If you think about how you got to be here, what is it that's important to you? And interestingly enough, when I speak to all my colleagues around the world, we've got 32 offices all over the world. When I speak to each and every one of my colleagues, they all have the same consultations with their clients. We all think, our situation is so unique. Maybe our laws are unique and our currency volatility is unique and our civil situation is either good or great or awful. But everybody in the world has similar needs. We have concerns around our quality of life. We have concerns about health. And maybe as we get a little bit older, you start thinking about, if I retire in this country or in that country, what will the healthcare look like? What will my personal security look like? What will, where will my kids go? If I educate my kids now, how many of you have kids that are studying internationally at the moment, but they don't have the right to stay because they have Nigerian passports? And I know all of you in the audience have probably had firsthand experience of that. How many times does your visa application get rejected? You suddenly want to go and travel, the kids are studying in the UK and mom wants to go and visit, but you can't, and it takes you 2 or 3 months to get your visa approved to go to the UK or to go to Europe or to go to China for business. So sometimes people just need the second passport for peace of mind, and Gorba was referring to peace of mind. That's very important. If you have the funds available and you can invest in that second residency or citizenship, let's give you the peace of mind that you can travel when you need to, that you can retire where you want to, and that you can set up your assets and your structures in a way that you don't pay undue taxes. So nobody can avoid taxes anymore, we all know that, but there are jurisdictions, like Henry said, where you can set up your international estate and trust and company. At the same time, you can create a second citizenship benefit that does the same thing. Some countries do not have any income tax. Some countries don't have inheritance tax, don't charge capital gains tax. These things are important when we start the process. So when we look at the next slide and we start talking about the different citizenship programs that we have, this becomes very interesting because they're all so different. And some of them overlap a little bit. So I'd like to just highlight 1 or 2. I'm not going to talk about all of them. Happy to, of course, take questions afterwards. If there's any of you that have a specific question about a specific program, we can talk about that. But the first one that for me fits in so well with the whole conversation today about succession planning, about gifting something to the next generation, about protecting your assets, about giving you global rights, is the Malta Citizenship Program. That is by far the most valuable second citizenship that a person can obtain through investment. It has a very large donation portion attached to it. It's called a contribution, but it is in effect a donation that you make to the government of Malta, and they utilize that for infrastructure, development, etc. But in exchange, over a period of either 1 or 2 or 3 years, you can obtain citizenship in Malta. Now, Malta's benefits is that it can transfer to future generations. So if you apply now, mom, dad, 2 kids, all 4 of you get passports, the kids get married in 10 years' time, their spouses can apply for citizenship without making additional investments. Their future children can apply for citizenship without making additional investments. So many of our clients see the Malta process as leaving an early legacy for their family rather than just a donation at this point. So there's different ways that you can use it. One of the reasons why Malta is extremely popular, other than being a fabulous little island to live on should you choose to move there, but it is the fastest route for somebody to obtain a European passport, which means that you and the whole family that is included in the application will have the right of establishment in Europe. So you can go and live anywhere in Europe, you can work anywhere in Europe, you've got access to healthcare, you've got access to education. So those are some of the reasons why people look at Malta. Compared to that, at the bottom of the page there, Montenegro is significantly lower from an investment point of view, obtaining citizenship, but it takes about 6 months and you get your passport. You can immediately start using it to travel visa free. But the reason why it is so much cheaper than Malta, if you want to use that terminology, is because they're not a full member of the EU yet. So you can't compare the two in terms of offering the same benefit immediately. But if you have kids in high school or just starting university and you know they're going to be studying for 4 or 5 years, and ultimately one day you'd like them to have European passports, then you can invest in a Montenegro citizenship, because by the end of 2025, if all goes according to plan, now this is politics, of course, but there's no guarantees there, but there's a lot of information and positive information about Montenegro's route to accession. So we do believe that by the end of 2025, your Montenegrin passport will give you the right of establishment in Europe. But in the meantime, you get a second passport, you can travel. Henry, I don't know if you were aware, but Montenegro only charges 9% personal tax, 9% income tax. Capital gains tax is minute. It's a very favorable tax jurisdiction. So the other citizenship programs are mostly the Caribbean islands. So there's 5 Caribbean islands that offer citizenship programs. And very important to note on this point, Henry alluded to it earlier, when you obtain citizenship in one of these countries, it does not automatically affect your tax position in Nigeria. It does not change it. If you wanted to, you can, and you can structure it that way, and you can start moving assets that way, and you can start spending more time there. But just getting a second passport, for instance, for travel purposes, does not change your tax situation, but there are benefits on the island from a tax point of view. So all the Caribbean passports are Commonwealth passports. They all offer you visa-free access to the UK directly. So despite Brexit, you still have the right to travel to the UK. You get visa-free access to all of the Schengen, Nordic states, Baltic states, South America, large parts of Africa. And if you've always wanted to come and visit South Africa, then Antigua and Barbuda has a visa-free treaty with South Africa. So a lot of my Kenyan clients get Antigua and Barbuda citizenship because it gives them everything, plus they get the right to travel to South Africa for business purposes. The two more important ones on this slide from a future planning point of view, especially for our children, is Grenada and Turkey. So both those programs hold E2 visa treaties, or not the programs, the countries hold E2 visa treaties with the USA. So if you have an intention of sending your kids to the US and you want them to go and study there and go to university there, then getting citizenship in either Grenada or Turkey, and then using the E2 visa treaty to make a further investment in the US will give you and your spouse and your children the right to live, work, and study in the US as a US resident. So it doesn't lead to citizenship, which in many cases for our clients are beneficial. So when we look at the next slide and we look at things like the US EB5 program, then we'll see that it's a little bit different. But with Grenada and Turkey, you get the right to spend some time in the US, and you can structure your life that you don't end up becoming a US taxpayer. Because if you follow the US program on this page, which is a residency program, it's called EB5. If you make an investment in the EB5 program, $900,000 US minimum investment for a 5-year term, you will ultimately become a US citizen. And as we all know, it's such a horrible word, but US taxes trump all. So there is no way to avoid paying tax in the US. Once you're a citizen, you are a US taxpayer. And for many of our business people, that might not be that attractive. You want the access and you want the right, and the kids want to spend time there, but you don't necessarily want to become a US taxpayer. So if we look at these residency programs, There are two here that are very popular. So we often get asked, where do people go? Where do the majority of people go? And there's no real one answer because everybody's situation is so different. But what has emerged over the last, let's say 5-6 years, is that the Portugal and Greece Golden Visa programs are very popular. Portugal, because it has an easier route to European citizenship. If you make your investment in Portugal and you jump through all the hoops and you visit every year for 7 days and you renew your residency and you learn to speak Portuguese, you are entitled to apply for citizenship. So that process takes a little bit longer. And sometimes our clients will compare Portugal, for instance, with Montenegro and saying, well, do I want to jump through all the hoops in Portugal to ultimately get my citizenship of a European country? Or do I just apply for Montenegro and wait for the politicians to make it all happen and Montenegro becomes a European country? So those are some of the things we weigh up. Greece, on the other hand, is a fabulous residency program. It immediately issues you a 5-year residency card. You don't have any requirement to ever go back. We can find you a beautiful investment, manage it for you, rent it out, and you have your 5-year residency card that allows you visa-free travel through all of the Schengen. You can, of course, also make an investment that will allow you to retire there if that is what you want, or maybe to invest somewhere so your kids that are currently living in the UK and being snowed in want to escape for a holiday to a Mediterranean country. You can structure it that way. I recently did an application for a Kenyan businessman that manufactures furniture, and he needed a warehouse in Europe. So the solution was to not buy a house or a villa or an apartment. We found him a warehouse at the airport and he qualified for residency that way. So his furniture now goes via the warehouse in Athens, and that solved many problems for him. So the other big programs here that I'll just briefly refer to are all what we would consider immigration programs. So if you look at the UK, New Zealand, Canada, the US, Australia, you cannot become a citizen of those countries without spending 183 days of the year in that country. So once your application is approved, you have to move there, or you have to spend half your year there and the other half back in Nigeria. So you have to meet minimum stay requirements in order to ultimately obtain citizenship, which might be another reason why Portugal is so popular, because in Portugal, you only have to visit a week a year or 2 weeks every second year. So you don't actually have to live there to become a citizen. So if we look at the next slide, I just want to show you some of the research that we do now. Having been in the business for so long, we do a lot of research that we publish every quarter, every year, depending on what the publication is. These numbers come out of the Henley Passport Index, which we've been publishing for 15 years. It comes out every quarter. We use IATA statistics to show our investors how many countries they can visit visa-free. So we all know, I know as a South African where I can travel without having to apply for a visa. You know as a Nigerian where you can go, not too many places. What we don't always understand is what the benefit is of then getting that second citizenship, or even just residency. Getting residency in any of the European countries will give you visa-free travel through all of Europe to all of the Schengen countries. So that already is a big benefit, and sometimes that's all that's required. But if you look at citizenship, and you look at the additional benefits you get obtaining citizenship in one of those countries, I think then the picture changes dramatically. Just investing because you don't want to stand in the visa queue anymore, maybe depending on how much wealth you have, maybe that's not a good reason. For some of our clients it is. For other people, they'd like to rather make a real estate investment or make a lifestyle change. So if we look at the last slide, that would just be a summary of all the programs we offer. So I'd like to just refer back to something Nguba said. She was referring to Chief Gani Foyinmi. I hope I pronounced that right. And his family setup and how much work he did to structure his estate properly. Now, if he wanted to in his lifetime apply for alternative citizenship or residency, not a single one of these programs would have been able to accommodate both wives and all the children. So it's not about the children, it's about the 2 wives. So as soon as you have 2 or 3 spouses, you have to make 2 or 3 applications. So for instance, you would have had Chief Gani Foyinmi and his first wife in the first application and their children in that application. and then he would sponsor the second wife and the children and the third wife and the children, and that's how it rolls on. So every country once again treats it differently, but there is no citizenship program in the world where you can apply with 2 wives in one application. So the rest of the world or the citizenship programs just don't work like that. So this is just a map of the programs that Henley and Partners offers. Because of our government advisory work, and because we're a European company, and because GDPR and confidentiality is so important for us, we spend a lot of time doing due diligence on country programs when they launch, especially if we're not involved in them. Then it's important for us to really go and kick the tires and to understand how those programs work, because we cannot offer something to our clients and to you and to ARM clients that we don't know 100% is actually going to work for a client. So these are the programs that are approved. There's probably another 70 odd countries that offer citizenship programs or residency programs in some shape or form, but we don't offer them all because they didn't tick all our boxes. So this is just a nice overview of where in the world we can go. You'll note there's no programs in South America or in Africa. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is it from my side. Yemi, I think we're happy to take some